It's Vlogmas time. Oh yes, it's Vlogmas time. My cousin shows us how to make a wonderful dessert.
Is it on now?
Hi friends.
Hi, how are you? I'm Sarah's cousin Jeff from New Zealand, although I live in Arizona.
Yeah, don't say that he's from Australia because he's not.
Perfect, so powdered
Ooh.
sugar would just be too uncontrollable.
Okay. So Jeff is teaching me and you how to make Pavlova, which they call Pav.
Yeah, for sure.
That's what their people call it. I guess I should tell them the list of ingredients. I'll
talk a little bit about the history.
Okay. Ooh, tell the history, yeah.
So I'll wait till I stop grinding the sugar.
Don't look at my messy kitchen, everyone.
So what we're doing here is creating confectioners sugar, which is sugar that's halfway between regular granulated sugar and powdered sugar. Although in New Zealand we call confectioner sugar caster sugar and we call powdered sugar icing sugar. So anyway,
interesting. That would confuse me.
Yeah, there's all kinds of things that we call things different. Cantaloupe, rock melon, and we call cilantro, we call it...
Do you call it coriander?
Coriander, yeah.
Okay.
I thought I'd done enough. It's always... When you make it, it's a little bit smaller. So here's the history. So Pavlova is named after the famous Russian ballerina Anna Pavlova, who visited Australia and New Zealand in the 1920s, and for a long time both countries, Australia and New Zealand, claim Pavlova, and it's a very popular dessert in both countries, but for a long time the Australians said no, we invented it first, because they had some kind of recipe back in the late 1920s. New Zealanders always said no, we invented it first, but we had no proof until about 15 years ago. We found a recipe from 1924 when Anna Pavlova visited the Clarendon Hotel in Christchurch, where I'm from, and the chef there made the dish and named it after her. So,
cool.
We won. Any Australians out there listening? Suck it up. We own the Pav.
This is a very controversial video.
Oh yes, audiences don't want to know about
Who's better at rugby?
Australia-New Zealand rivalry. Who's better at rugby?
Yeah, Australians
or New
Zealand. Oh, okay.
By far.
I kind of suspected you would say that.
It's probably not a fair comparison because Australia plays 3 different codes with the oval ball. They play rugby union, which is what we play in New Zealand mostly, which is the oldest and biggest version of the game. But they play rugby league, which is a kind of a hybrid version of the game with fewer players, and then they play Australian rules football.
Oh.
But rugby league is only played in a few places in the world, and Australian rules football is, guess what, only played in Australia and only in a few states in Australia. So I think if Australia didn't have the distraction of the other codes, they probably would be better than New Zealand. But anyway, so what I need now is, do you have an egg separator? Because if you don't, it doesn't matter.
Oh, we have glass measuring cups.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, down in that Lazy Susan right there, the corner.
Yeah. Right
there, where my foot is.
Oh, the Lazy Susan.
The spinny thing.
So here's a couple of really key secrets. Have you got like a hand mixer?
Yes, I do.
All right.
Electric
hand mixer.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have the vinegar right here.
Vinegar. Okay, good. And vanilla.
It's a large thing. Vanilla is up in that cupboard over there.
So here's some keys. Eggs at room temperature. You've got to make sure that it's a glass or steel bowl. Make sure that it's clean.
Okay.
Doesn't have any dust or crap in it.
Definitely don't want crap in it.
No. And you got to make sure that there is absolutely no egg yolk in.
Okay.
Pure egg white.
That's the part that intimidates me when it comes to separating eggs.
This is how you do it. You do them one at a time. So if you make a mistake, then you don't have to throw out a whole bunch. So you just kind of let the egg like that. And dump it in there, and then kind of go back and get the last little bit.
I have a friend who can crack 2 eggs at the same time.
Do you like the yolks, or
you can just toss it because I don't have anything in.
Like waste disposal.
So how many eggs does it call for?
4
eggs,
yeah.
Okay. So you're starting with a meringue. I never would have guessed there was vinegar involved.
Yeah, the vinegar is a flavour thing, and it's a kind of a consistency thing as well. Okay.
So people get Australians and New Zealanders confused.
They do.
What's the best giveaway that someone is Australian?
Okay, so every sentence has a word with an I in it. Mm-hmm. And New Zealanders pronounce the I like a low, flat, almost U sound.
Uh-huh.
Like Sydney, fish.
Sydney?
Yeah.
Sydney. Okay.
Australians, 1, 2, 3, I've done 3. Australians pronounce the I like a double E, a much sharper sound, like Sydney, fish. Mm-hmm. So there's a big difference. Big. So literally the I is like a fork in the road. And if you hear somebody that you think, oh, he sounds Australian, don't immediately say, are you Australian? Listen, and you will hear a word with an I in it, and Australians and New Zealanders will. There are other differences, but that's the easiest one.
One thing I've noticed from watching Flight of the Conchords is like saying the word get comes out get.
Get.
And Brett is
yeah,
Brit.
Whereas Australians say
Brit.
get, more like the English.
Okay.
The other big difference is Australians are more nasally. Mm-hmm. It's much more twangy, like this, mate. You know, like even the word mate, which is a slang word that both countries use, although Australians use it a lot more. They'll call everybody a mate.
Okay.
They'll call the bus driver a mate. Whereas in New Zealand, you only call a friend a mate. You know.
Oh, interesting.
So we say mate, and they'll say mate, almost like M-I-T-E.
Might.
So,
okay.
You know, if there was an Australian right here, and they were talking, and we were to say a sentence, and then I would say, you could hear the difference, really, honestly. But most people don't get that opportunity. So, all right.
I feel like I want like an online video quiz where I can identify if someone's from Australia or New Zealand. Like I've always had an interest in linguistics.
Okay.
I really like foreign languages, and it's fun to guess where people are from.
New Zealand also doesn't have a very much of a they don't have, like the US has such phenomenally diverse regional accents. Okay, cornstarch, 2 teaspoons.
Well, I was just talking in a video about even just Washingtonian stuff, where instead of bag, we tend to say bag, and we say egg instead of egg.
I would not have picked.
So when I watch cooking shows, I'm like, oh, is that how the rest of the country says that? Like, I didn't realize that not everyone says egg.
I would never have thought that the state of Washington. I would have put Washington, particularly the greater Seattle area, in with just sort of generic Western US, California, Oregon.
It's a subtle thing. And then we say groceries instead of groceries.
Okay.
Some people say groceries.
All right, now we get started doing the.
Oh, okay.
The whipping.
Can we whip it?
So it's going to be a few minutes, but you want to whip this up.
Okay. And you haven't added any sugar?
No,
yet?
you only do the egg whites first.
Okay.
And you want to get them up to a point where the meringue is almost stiff. Like, I'll show you you can see the consistency changing as you beat air into it. It expands. This is the secret to why it's so yummy. Because
we also say coupon instead of coupon. Like some people
say coupon.
Some people say.
So that'll be the Canadian influence, because that's how Canadians say it. It's like maybe Seattle is like Minnesota. Minnesotans say Minnesota like Canadians.
So Canadians say coupon?
Yeah.
Okay.
Coupon. So do you say do or Jew? Like D-U-E?
Do.
Yeah, we say Jew.
Yeah.
Like the J-E-W.
Yeah.
So you see how it's changing?
So then I watch movies where a British guy will say schedule.
Yeah, we say schedule. It has to be, see when the peaks come up like that? Mm-hmm. So it needs just a little bit more. So that's your little test.
Okay, so you want stiff peaks?
Stiff peaks.
Versus soft peaks?
Yeah,
okay.
so that was a little soft.
Yeah, I'm surprised it was only 4 eggs because it comes out so poofy.
Oh, that's so small.
I thought you were going to say I need 6 eggs, just like Beauty and the Beast.
See, that's perfect.
I need 6 eggs.
All right, now here's the next secret. When you add, so I put the cornstarch in with the sugar. When you add the sugar, you need to add it gradually.
Okay.
Did
you mix it together, or is it just on top?
Just on top.
Okay.
But when I go back to New Zealand, the ultimate test, because New Zealanders make food from scratch.
Oh, really?
Yeah, everything's made from scratch. They're like, well, it's not Scottish food, it's French. It's like France. So women are taught how to cook, and still even the modern generation, even though they do it a little less, they cook everything from scratch. And so New Zealand is full of expert pavlova makers. And so when I go back there and I say, as a guy, oh yeah, I make a pav, people go, oh yeah, whatever. Really, Jack?
So you were telling me that it's a shameful thing to show up somewhere with a store-made pav?
What?
To show up at a party with a store-made pav?
Oh, you never do that.
Yeah.
That's like tacky. That's like... that. Store-made pavs now really have flopped in New Zealand because they are huge, kind of fluffy things. And you bring it to a party and people go, oh, mate, couldn't you make a pav? You know, it's like they get mocked.
I'm trying to think of what would be the equivalent here, but it seems like
in America,
in the States, like
everything is store-bought.
Yeah, it's like you bring any store-bought thing you like. You know,
you go to a funeral or any kind of party in New Zealand. Sorry, I've broken that. And it's all homemade stuff, like store-bought cake. Store-bought cookies, store-bought cake would never happen in New Zealand.
What about cake mix? Is that frowned upon?
Yeah, cake mix is okay.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyone worth their salt. But people will know it's made from a cake mix. And some of the older women will tut tut tut. You know, you've made this with a cake mix, haven't you? Like, oh, yeah. Because, it's still the cool thing. And then you do a teaspoon of vanilla.
Okay.
And this one you have to really make sure it's mixed in because of the colour. So you see how it changes the colour. Oh, I need some salt. Just a pinch of salt.
Oh, let me grab it.
Just a tiny little bit. So.
Well, I'm going to make pork carnitas
tonight
from scratch. Although the tortillas are not from scratch, they're store-bought. So.
Alright, that's it. I need a rubberized spatula.
Okay. See that big, huge...
Oh, yeah. There we go.
Whatchamacallit?
Okay, so let's... Where did the sugar go?
Over here. The sugar... Oh.
I'm going to move it out of the way.
On top of that big flour thing. Yeah.
Okay, so...
He cut out a round of parchment paper.
Yeah.
So this just goes on freestyle?
Yeah, but you do want to... How do you pop this out? You just pull them out?
Oh, you push the button in.
Oh, there we go. Got it.
Yeah. Not the greatest kitchen for filming.
Oh, no, it doesn't matter. I don't care what a kitchen looks like. As long as it's got all the crucial implements and ingredients, I don't care.
And then, so you bake it, and then it cools in the oven for hours and hours.
So there's a procedure for the baking, which will...
And it's at 300?
You heat it up to 300.
Okay.
And then as you put it in, you turn it down to 285. And you cook it at 285 for 15 minutes. And then you turn it down to 250 and cook it for an hour and 15 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then
so it bakes quite a long time.
Turn off the oven, and this is super crucial. This is the most important thing, is you have to let it go cold in the oven. And that takes a few hours. So you need to allow... probably 4 or 5 hours.
So then we probably have to play fun games and stuff while we wait?
Yeah, this will be like dessert later on tonight.
Yeah.
In fact...
we could go to Fred Meyer, my second home.
Fred Meyer, the supermarket. Well, do you have cream and fruit?
I do have cream and fruit.
Okay, so that's what we put on it.
But I am supposed to pick up my medication before January 1st, so that I don't have to pay $1,400 instead of $5.
We can go there now and do that if you want.
Okay.
Oh no, we'll wait till the 15 minutes. So you want to kind of... So there's two ways that you can either have a sort of a thinner, wider one, or a smaller, This one will make a little bit smaller because they were smaller eggs.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yeah, they claim to be large eggs, but that's clearly a lie. Lately,
yeah, they lied.
They've been smaller lately.
I almost went for a 5th egg, but I thought, no, we'll stick with what we've got. It's fine.
Yeah, we'll just not share with the other people in my family.
Well, you don't need to give me any. This is the 4th pad that I've made since I've been up here in Seattle, so I'm kind of padded out in terms of eating them. You know, I had a little piece at Christmas. There you go. You know, I mean, it doesn't have to look super fancy on top because that's all going to be covered in cream anyway.
That's true.
But you do want it to look round.
Okay. And here I thought we were just going to put it in a pie plate and...
No. It's much easier this way. And then you want to serve it just on a big plate. All right.
Yum.
In it goes.
Here it goes.
And don't open the oven to look. Otherwise it'll collapse.
No
like
peeking. Oh, no.
Okay, now I just push 285.
Timer?
No, 285.
Oh, 285. Yeah. So push bake again.
Bake.
And then 285.
And I just do it on my phone.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this thing is quiet and it ruins stuff for
Set
you.
my timer for 15 minutes. All right, that's it. My mother was the youngest, and she married a little later, and so her children are literally like a generation apart from your parents' generation. So Marion's kids are more like your generation.
Gap. So are we second cousins?
No, we're first cousins
we're
once
first
removed.
cousins once removed.
So your dad is my first cousin, and so
Uh-huh.
the children of a first cousin is
Gotcha.
first cousin once removed. So
right.
so why am I from New Zealand? So my mother, she grew up in Seattle. And,
but you couldn't tell because the times that I met her, she had an accent. So yeah.
My mother, she had a kind of a weird hybrid. Because
so
I listened to
I was always confused. Like, wait, how did this happen? How do I have cousins from New Zealand and?
Yeah. So my mother died 26 years ago, and I had her in 1993. And my uncle Cookie, who is her the only remaining sibling of the family. He had a voice tape from her that she sent to him about 6 months before she died, and it was really weird listening to it, to hear her kind of a curious hybrid New Zealand American accent. Oh. So we growing up in New Zealand, we always thought our mother had an American accent, but the American relatives thought she had a New Zealand accent. So anyway,
the same with my friend from Ireland. Is like I was still having to translate for her with Americans.
Like Irish accent.
Like what did she say? And then meanwhile, her brother is like,
she sounds American.
Lose the accent.
Yeah, I know.
And she's like, I don't have an American accent.
So my New Zealand accent is not very extreme. Like if you go to New Zealand, you'd probably, they talk a lot faster and a little bit more extreme in the accent. And of course they use all the slang. So Americans do struggle when they go down to New Zealand. They go, what the heck did they just say? So they did a study once that the average American half-hour news cast is read in 20 minutes in New Zealand because they just talk so much faster. Anyway, so my mother grew up in Seattle, and
I'm kind of a
she went to college in Utah, and then she did her master's at the U of W. I can be that specific.
Okay.
And my father, who's English, he graduated from Cambridge University, and he came over to the US to do a master's in US history, and they met on the same US history course at the U of W. And then he did
then his mom became British.
So so they fell in love, and my dad he did a term at UBC in Vancouver. He was a Fulbright scholar. He went back to England to do his PhD. My mother quit and then went to work for Boeing, when it was the major employer in Seattle. Saved her money, and she actually, when she went to England to marry my dad, she went on the train to New York and then went on the Queen Mary across the Atlantic. It was sort of pre-cheap flights days, So they married in England, and the oldest three, I'm the oldest of five, the oldest three of us were born in England.
Okay.
And then when my dad graduated with his PhD, he became a history academic, and he vaulted from being like the first entry-level position in college, which they call a lecturer in England,
Okay.
to a full professor in one leap.
Oh, wow.
A full tenured professor.
I don't know if I've ever met your dad.
You probably have. Yeah, you might
I
have been really
remember,
little.
So
He used to stay with
15.
Amy.
Okay. I was 15 when we went to visit Peter and Susie in Maryland. And I know your mom came to visit. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, my dad
your
was,
dad was-
my dad came partway through that trip. I
Okay.
don't think he came to Washington D.C.
I remember having a funny conversation with her, and she said, Cheerio, and I said, cornflake.
You said cornflake. Okay.
Cornflake. Just, whatever type cereal.
How funny.
I
Oh,
want-
Cheerio. Oh, I see. Whereas Cheerio means goodbye.
And I've always been a voice imitator, and so when
Okay.
I'm around people with accents, I have to be
Try and
conscious
imitate?
not to start.
Okay. So,
I imitate my friends. Like, I'll be talking to my friend Naomi, and I'll say, "Oh, so and so said this," and I'll say it in their voice, and she goes, "That sounded just like her. Do me."
how funny. So then my dad, this was back in the 60s, late 60s, when the baby boomers were first entering into college. And so the universities all around the Western world had to expand rapidly, and they didn't have enough qualified people. So they were hiring people as full professors that didn't even have a PhD. My dad did have a PhD. So he got a huge promotion, and we moved to Christchurch, New Zealand,
Oh, wow.
where he became a professor at the University of Canterbury in the history department.
And so, how old were you?
I was 5 when we
5,
moved.
okay.
So I was 5, my brother Ben was 4. New Zealand is the place that we consider home. It's where we grew up. That's where the accent's from. Yeah, so that's how come we ended up in New Zealand. I came back here to look. So my sister Ruth came here in I think 1980 for 2 years, and she lived over in Broadmoor. She actually lived with Grandma for a while, your great-grandmother.
That's right.
And then she lived with Amy, and then she was a nanny in some rich family in Broadmoor in Seattle.
So my
That's the time
dad and his cousins.
You want to pause it while I go and turn
Oh,
down the...
yes. Pause.
Here we are at the hour and 15-minute mark, and the oven has been turned off, and we leave it in there until the oven goes cold.
Yeah, we can't open the oven or we'll ruin everything. The kitchen is now a huge mess from pork carnitas, but the pav is done and it looks beautiful. I made some whipped cream for it, and now we just gotta slice up some strawberries.
Yeah, let's do the strawberries. I think that's a good knife.
That's not a knife, this is a knife.
That's
Sorry.
a knife, mate. Sharp knife.
We're gonna eat it now.
Don't-
Da, 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 da.
2001, a Pav Odyssey. Dang, it won't come out.
Yum.
Maybe this isn't the right. Sorry, I need to.
Is that not a good cutter?
It's okay. The
Is
first
it
one
ruining
was-
everything?
No, the first one is always a little bit tricky. This one's really marshmallow on the inside, though.
Nice.